to infinity and beyond.
This is me. This is how I win.
Were you rushing or were you dragging? Answer!
You're a wizard, Harry.
Say what again? Say what again? I dare you.
No, I am your father.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
And here we go.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back inside the film room. Zach Goins here with Johnny Sobchak. Johnny, how you doing, buddy?
I am doing great, Zach. How are you doing?
I'm good. Good to be back. It was a crazy week, especially for you.
Oh yeah.
It's gonna be a blast to talk about today. That's the topic of discussion.
Yeah. No, I think, and everyone of course knows what we're talking about. This past week was the Dune first trailer launch, and that was kind of the talk of the town, I think, on Twitter and social media for at least a couple days, and then a bunch of little other pieces of news dropping and little teaser trailers and trailers here and there. So it's been and of course award season's finally kicking off too. So it's been a wild few days, but I'm excited to talk about.
Yeah, definitely. I would say all of that was happening, that was all exciting, but it was kind of a slow time for actual movies because we, in order to adapt, we're not actually doing like a full review for a movie today. We're going to use the Dune trailer deep dive as like the meat of the episode here. But there weren't really any new releases yet. Next week will be a little busier with The Devil All the Time on Wednesday and then Antebellum on Friday. So hopefully we'll be talking about both of those next week. But
yes,
this week, like Johnny said, a lot of news to talk about. The Dune trailer, of course, we're going to dive very deep into that. And that's pretty much it for this week. So it might be a little shorter of an episode after we went long last week. But what's been going on before we get into any news stuff? What's up with you this week?
I mean, a lot of it was just kind of my mind and heart going ballistic over the Dune.
Wednesday was a busy day.
Yeah, no, from basically like noon until 8, 9 o'clock in the evening. I was writing in the trailer analysis, which you can find on Inside the Film Room, and we recorded our reactions and did a little small breakdown video on YouTube, which has been received super well, and I'm like really excited and proud.
Except people keep calling me out saying that's not a modern song, that's an old song. It's from Pink Floyd in the 60s. And I was like, okay, I didn't mean like an actual it's not like it's a TikTok song. But the idea that it's like a modern sounding song, first of all, it was not the original version, so it was a modern version of that, haters. Yeah. But it was just like a non-traditional like epic orchestral score. Yeah. So that was what I meant by that. I mean, for all of you commenters out there.
Yeah. But yeah, so that was just, I mean, it was it's been super fun, and everyone on Twitter has been kind of like talking about it, and everyone's excited, and just kind of breaking down the trailer and basking in all of the 3 minutes of footage that we've gotten, and just also there was an Entertainment Weekly interview with Denis Villeneuve that kind of people kind of like glanced over it, but it's a very insightful breakdown where he kind of talks about different aspects of the trailer and different characters and shots and ideas, and I definitely recommend checking that out. I've tweeted a few things about it that mostly caught my eye, but yeah, it was a very fun and hectic time, but it's all gone super well, and I'm really happy with how everyth's been received. And obviously we have all the supporters and listeners to thank for supporting Inside the Film Room, and it's just kind of the beginning in a very weird year where it's kind of been hard to get excited about certain things, or we've had a lot of waiting and non-news and non-exciting things happening. It's fun to finally kind of everyone get together and celebrate something that's pretty cool and something to look forward to at some point.
You know what else we've been waiting on that's been great to finally actually come? It's football season.
Yes, sir.
We're recording on Saturday, so the Heels just wrapped up a big win. Go Tar Heels over Syracuse. So 1-0 on the season. Go ahead and book your trip to the national championship. But other than that, we've got NFL back already started on Thursday. But our team, you're a Vikings fan, I'm a Panthers fan. Those guys kick off tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
So just really, it's some sense like you're talking about with movies, but also like, I mean, I'm not a crazy big NBA fan. That's obviously been going on for a bit. But for me, like football has always been my sport. So to have that back is like some sort of like normalcy. Like it feels like a normal Saturday with games on all day. It feels like you kind of have it's like, okay, when all the days run together, you can use Saturday and Sunday, those games as like something to look forward to or something to distinguish the days from just monotony. So
yeah,
it's nice to have that back when the rest of the world is on fire.
Yeah, definitely, literally. And it's a good change of pace, and for sports fans, I'm a big fan. I'm a fan of pretty much, football and soccer. What we call it here in the United States for people listening abroad. But I'm an Arsenal fan. I'm a Carolina fan. I went to Carolina, so I'm happy they both won today, and I'm looking forward to hopefully the Minnesota Vikings winning tomorrow. It's fun. It's fun to be back into it, and of course, the basketball is going on, and golf, and hockey, and baseball, and all these other things. So there's something for everyone. If you're a sports fan on top of being a film fan, or if you're more geared towards sports, things are kind of slowly but surely getting back to somewhat normal standards, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I've been on my Howard Ratner grind this weekend. Now that football is back, I made a crazy parlay that did not play out, but it was only for like a $5 bet. So don't think I'm a degenerate. I'm not a degenerate or anything. So
devastating.
So yeah, I mean, good to have that back, and good to have movies back, movie news, movie stuff. So shall we get into some news other than what we've been doing in our personal life?
Yes, sir.
We spoke about it last week. Just some very basic stuff. Mandalorian season 2 coming on October 30th. But this week we got a whole lot more details about what to expect in the new season. Thanks to Entertainment Weekly, there were they did a big spread on the cover, a ton of great photos as well. We got to see Baby Yo and of course the Mandalorian, but they talked a lot about what made the first season a success. That was one of the big points before they got into season 2. And I think that Dave Filoni was quoted as saying that they didn't overthink things. Like they were able to stick to the tropes and the characters and like their whole like gunslinger in the Old West kind of thing. That it was like a clear like point A to point B. This is what's happening. You don't have to know all of the intricacies of the Star Wars universe to follow it along.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's like I totally agree with that. That was what made it so enjoyable. What you were able to do, like these little capsule episodes where each one was their own adventure, and that made it appealing to everyone. I feel like is that how you had that same reaction?
Yeah, I think as someone who isn't a huge Star Wars fan, it was refreshing to get something that wasn't so tied into a huge overarching galaxy-wide story. It was just a very character-focused and relatively low stakes, conflict. And it was just cool to see different places, different kinds of characters and creatures. And it was a very, very good way of kind of, I know it came out last year. Was that before The Rise of Skywalker came out?
Yes, it started in November 12th was when Disney Plus launched, and there was an episode then, and it ended like the last 2 episodes were after Rise of Skywalker, I think. Yeah,
so I think it was kind of a good, at the same time when all that mess was going down on the theatrical side of things in the movies, this was a good alternative and a bit of a palate cleanser. And I think now, especially where they're having a break from the movies, to get this back into viewers' homes and getting them thinking about Star Wars again and excited about Star Wars again in a time where we can't go to the movie theaters and they're not putting out Star Wars movies. It's a very good thing, even for someone like me, again, who is not crazy about this franchise.
However, they did say, they said all that stuff about it being like self-contained and individual stories. And then they immediately followed it up by saying season 2 the scale is going to be bigger, greater scope. Stories are going to be less isolated. Everything's going to be like weaved together a little bit more. So we'll see if that, hopefully they're like taking a good approach to that.
Yeah.
And not just like throwing everything they did correctly in season 1 to the wayside. But I mean, we talked
I really don't think they will, just because of how well this was.
Right. But they a lot of the stuff they said, like one of the things was they were like inspired by a Game of Thrones, and like the way that those stories, like you had like all of the individual characters, but they like weaved them together. So I think that's a good approach to take, that it's not going to be like a MCU Easter egg kind of 23 movie kind of thing, but like something a little just like bringing it all together, but not in a way that is so you have to be like so invested in it. But we talked a little bit about the new rumored cast members last week with Rosario Dawson and Tamara Morrison. A couple other ones that were noted were Katie Sackhoff, who she's supposed to be playing a bounty hunter named Bo-Katan Kryze, which is from one of the animated series. And then Michael Biehn, I don't know if I said that right, Michael Biehn, and Timothy Oliphant are both in unknown roles as well. And they were talking about like, they were talking about like how secretive that is, that some of those are correct, some of them aren't, but they were like literally ushered onto the set under like Sith Lord hooded robes, so that paparazzi couldn't see who it was or what was going on. So as much as they kept Baby Yoda under wraps last year, that's the level of care that's going into everything this season, it sounds like.
Yeah, and that's exciting, because they mentioned that some familiar characters and faces are going to be new to the show, but things that we've seen and heard of before in the movies. But it sounds like there still could be some good, exciting surprises and genuinely, new directions and things to introduce to, which is good, because they need to keep it fresh, I think.
Mm-hmm. And then just before we move on, a couple more nuggets from this spread. They mentioned that the season 2, it sounds like it'll pick up pretty much right where season 1 left off. They were talking about how it's going to be Mando was taking Baby Yoda to go look for his people where he came from. So it's going to be picking up right there, and he's going to be in some big trouble. And that trouble is coming from Giancarlo Esposito's Moff Gideon, who we saw with the dark saber. And he was quoted as saying that he will go, quote, toe-to-toe with the Mandalorian. So that sounds pretty intense. I don't know if that's going to be like mentally or like or if that's going to be like actual, like physically, like hand-to-hand combat. Right. So we'll see what kind of like conflict there is there. And then also Jon Favreau directed the season premiere, which he did not. He was like the creator of everything last year, but didn't direct anything. So that's going to be his debut with this show. So those were my biggest takeaways from that article. I don't know if there's anything else that you picked out from there, but just building that excitement as we're almost a little over a month away.
Yeah, it's a good timing, and people have been kind of hankering for it, but there's again not much time left to wait to see it. So I think it's good. Everything sounds really cool, and I was already excited for this. I think most everyone was. So
it's nice for you because you had the recent watch of season 1, so you didn't have to have like the as long of it. This isn't one of the ones where like I really enjoyed season 1, but it's not like a Game of Thrones for me where I was like, oh my gosh, well, season 2, come on, like that kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. So I haven't felt like, it's not like I've been dying every day waking up thinking about when is season 2 going to come out.
Yeah, I loved it a lot. And even then, I haven't been like, oh, I can't wait. Like, I'm dying to see season 2. Like, I'm excited to see it, and I'll be watching it as soon as it's available. But it hasn't been like on my mind necessarily, like something like Dune, for example, which I've been following for a long time.
No, I wouldn't think. You've never talked about Dune. I don't know what you're talking about. So moving on, next piece of news. This one's going to be right up your alley since you're going to be writing the review for it, but we got a tease. There's not even just the tease, but a lot of news surrounding Nomadland from all of the different film festivals going on right now. Very exciting stuff. Mm-hmm. This is the upcoming drama written and directed by Chloe. How do you say that?
I believe it's Chloe Zhao.
Chloe Zhao.
Yeah.
who will be doing the Eternals, but
Yeah.
this is obviously a much different movie, and it's starring Frances McDormand, and it's gotten a ton of hype. It's at Venice Film Festival, TIFF, New York Film Festival as well. Set to come out wide release in the U.S. on December 4th, but tons of stuff going on here.
Yeah, this is a film that I've been kind of tracking since, late last year, early this year, just because I knew, Frances McDormand, I think, is, if she's not the best, female actor working today, she's top 5 at least, top 3 probably. So I'm always excited to see it when she's leading something. But I knew Chloe Zhao, she had done The Rider, which was a super, super well-received indie film. I want to say it was 2018, but it was, if not, it was sometime in the last couple of years. And this sounded like it was kind of another, not necessarily indie film, because it's from Searchlight Pictures, which was previously Fox Searchlight, but a very dramatic, and it's based in the American West. The story about this woman who she's older, Frances McDormand's age, and she lost everything during the Great Recession, around 10 years ago. And she's just basically a modern day nomad, moving around the American West, meeting different people and in this community, trying to kind of rediscover herself. And it just sounds kind of like, and the images that we've seen before this little teaser come out all looked beautiful. And so I was really excited, and I didn't really realize until just the last maybe few weeks, the last month or so, that it is going to be a legit, awards contender, an Oscar, best picture contender. It's not going to be just a small indie film that's really well received but doesn't like make any waves in the industry or in the big award shows. It's going to actually be like a legit player.
And I think that'll definitely help just the way that you're going to be reviewing it with the written review for the website is through New York Film Festivals. Like, they're offering $25 rentals, basically, where you can tune in at a certain day, certain time, and check out the movies. So you don't have to be like an accredited media outlet there like usual, but it's just making these movies more accessible. So there's obviously like a lot of great stuff that's playing up there, but this is one that we've both been keeping our eyes on. And I think that like accessibility will help obviously not the general public. We aren't the ones voting for the Academy, but just that kind of like word of mouth, building the hype a little bit more by letting some of the people who aren't in those exclusive clubs see it at a time that's not waiting until December 4th.
Yeah, exactly. And New York Film Festival is definitely leading the way and doing it, kind of the right way. As you said, it's just like a film festival because it's on, even though it's online and it's open for anyone that can get in and rent it. It's at a certain time on a certain day. So it's just like if you were going to a screening at a real festival, which is kind of cool because it kind of retains that same kind of experience. But it's also, premiering at all, like pretty much every major fall film festival. It's premiered at Venice. It's at TIFF. It's going to be at Telluride. And the major news that dropped earlier today was that it has won the Golden Lion. The Venice Film Festival is now over, and it's taken the top prize. And this is no small thing either, because not only is Venice just in general the world's oldest film festival, a very prestigious film festival, it in recent years has been a big indicator of Oscar potential and Best Picture contenders, because in 2018, in 2017, The Shape of Water won Golden Lion, went on to win Best Picture. The year after that, 2018, Roma went on to be Best Picture nominated. And then last year, Joker stunned everyone and won. And of course, that went on to get 11 nominations and win Best Actor and nominated for Best Picture. So this is, if everything else leading up to this point was not convincing anyone of how legit this movie is going to be, this for sure, I think, is kind of solidified that.
Right. I mean, and that tease as well, that was really I hadn't been following this for as long as you had, but the tease was really like my first exposure, I would say, to this. Mm-hmm. And that literally, it's not like it was a trailer or anything. It was like a clip of Frances McDormand like walking through the trailer park for maybe like 40 seconds.
Yeah.
But just like the visuals there, the sound, like you could immediately get like what the vibe of this movie is, what the feel is, and it's something that was super appealing and made me instantly, okay, September 26th, 8 p.m., $25, I'm in. Like,
yeah,
I put it on the schedule immediately, and then hearing all of this other stuff, the other hype around it, makes me even more excited to get to check that out and check out your review when that comes.
Yeah, it's definitely, I liked the teaser a lot as well. It is literally just a 40-second clip of her, as you said, walking through, and the music, as you pointed out on Twitter when I was kind of talking about its Oscar potential, I think it sounds beautiful, and people have also been praising that in the reviews that have been coming out of these festivals. So in a year where it's kind of weird, even though some of these categories are going to be potentially very stacked and loaded, just depending on what bigger movies are still able to qualify in time and come out in theaters and whatnot, it's definitely going to be have a good shot at pretty much anything, because it is not only just a great film, but this is a weird year for qualifying and different films being up and available. So I'm definitely really excited. I think I'm gonna try to check out her last film, The Rider, before I see this one. And again, I'm very excited to see it on September 26th and then have a written review up as soon as possible on the following day on September 27th. So definitely be on the lookout for that. Of course, I'll be posting on Twitter. I'll be posting on the social media accounts for Inside the Film Room, but definitely a very cool film to look forward to. So
yeah, then another one. I guess we'll jump down on the list here, but just speaking of like awards and everything, some of the big news out of the Academy this week was the new diversity standards coming for Best Picture nominees that will begin in 2025. So we're still a ways away. I guess the kind of thought process there was that for films that are already in production or have completed production,
right? Yeah.
They don't just want to like slap these rules on there and potentially mess up anything that they have going. But beginning in 2025, nominees just for Best Picture, not for all the other categories, they will have to meet 2 of 4 standards in order to be eligible for consideration. The 4 standards, the 4 categories are on-screen representation, themes, and narratives, creative leadership and project team, industry access and opportunities, and audience development. So those 4, and then like within those 4 categories, there are 3 or 4 different ways that they can meet that standard. But it's mainly just so you need to have like this percentage of characters that represent these underrepresented groups, whether it's like a race or an orientation or like any sort of just disability, anything that is not strictly like white people on the screen. Like that's, and that's always, we've heard Oscars so white. We've heard like all of the complaints about a lack of diversity, no female directors being nominated, something like that. So, I mean, this is obviously it's overdue. It's great news to hear that. But I think that there's also been a lot of people, I think you pointed out on Twitter, like a lot of people are freaking out like, oh my gosh, like so PC, blah, blah, blah. But like I didn't do the exact research, but just from seeing stuff on social media, I'm pretty sure all of the nominees from last year would have still been eligible this year. Is that like the way that it works? Like a lot of people will be doing that industry access and opportunity, like the behind the scenes kind of stuff, and that 3rd and 4th category.
Yeah, I mean, this is a good thing, and I just can't understand why anyone would be opposed to this, because the main concern when you read something like this, or when they have these sorts of qualifications that they want people to meet, is that, oh, it's going to limit the amount of stories that can be told, or it's going to restrict certain stories or films from qualifying. But the good thing about this is that it's not at all, because if you wanted to, if you still wanted to do a story or a film where it's all, white people, straight people, that has nothing to do with underrepresented groups or what have you, which is perfectly fine, but you can still have people behind the camera. You can still have interns. You can still have things that fit into this industry access and opportunities and audience development, these segments. It doesn't, or you could have, just people involved with the production, casting and things like that. It's not going to stop any projects or films from being developed on screen as they still would be if this was never even established. And that's like,
and
I
think
can't
that's a
understand
good
why
thing.
anyone would have an issue with this.
It's a good thing because like even if like you're talking about the story's not necessarily being limited or the actors, but like it's a chain reaction of like, okay, well if you're not doing plan A or plan B with like the on-screen or the director or anything, but if you're using C and D, you're still getting those people behind the scenes who will then climb the ladder to then be the ones who are making the movies, who are producing, who are directing, who are doing these things. And then that will bring then that they can make the choices to have these groups as actors, as leads, as whatever they want. Like it'll just diversity in general, whether it's on screen or behind the camera or in production, anything like that. Like it's all moving in the right direction. And as underrepresented groups gain power in Hollywood, then it's going to help everyone. Yeah.
And that again goes back to, you need it behind the camera and in the development process and the studio process as well. You can't just have, I think a good recent example of this would be Mulan, where, it's an entirely Asian cast, and that's great, but the people writing it are white. The director is white. All this, everyone involved in the studio essentially is white. And there's been a lot of complaints and, vocal criticism on social media and from critics and people who are in the industry saying, this is great, but it doesn't really feel, and even, how it's performing in China right now, it's falling flat. It's not doing well at the box office because it doesn't feel genuine necessarily. And I think that starts with the people who actually have to tell the story before it even gets in front of a camera. And, it's good, again, that it's not just, hey, you need to have these people in a movie, you need to have them in front of the camera. You need people at every level, and then watch as that percolates down and has long-term lasting effects. And that's why they're doing it in this exact structure, so that it's not just a quick fix. It's not just a one tier qualification process. It's a comprehensive plan, and I think that's the best way to do it. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with the way they're doing this, because at some point, if it's not developing quickly enough, you need to give it some sort of little nudge. You need to give it some sort of reason to change, and I think that's what this is supposed to do. So hopefully it works out.
Right. And again, this is going into effect with the 96th Oscars in 2025. Excuse me, I think 2024. But the other Oscars leading up to that, Best Picture nominees will still have not these like exact standards, but there will be some efforts of like a diversity, like some sort of diversity form inclusion standards that they'll have to meet and submit. So again, just all good news moving in that direction. So getting back to some trailers here, we got our first look at Rebecca, coming to Netflix October 21st. This is the gothic romance drama based on Daphne du Maurier's, I don't know French, but her classic novel, starring Lily James and Armie Hammer. I think this is a very it's like a period piece. It's almost similar to, we talked about Bly Manor last week. That's also a gothic romance. So Netflix is just really vibing with these movies, these genres in October. But a little plot synopsis: a young newlywed arrives at her husband's imposing family estate on a windswept English coast and finds herself battling the shadow of his first wife, Rebecca, whose legacy lives on in the house long after her death. So little romance, little drama, definitely a little spooky here. What were your thoughts of this trailer?
I
know you're not crazy about Netflix movies, with the exception of a few. So
yeah, I mean, it's not really anything can be good. It's not necessarily the Netflix. It's just Ben Wheatley is the director on this, and I haven't seen anything from him that's been outstanding. He's a weird filmmaker for this material. I kind of feel like maybe harkening back to his earlier in his career when he was doing some more similar projects, but I love Lily James. I'm a big fan of her. I loved her in Baby Driver and Cinderella. I thought Cinderella is probably the best live action Disney movie they've done. A big part of that is her in that role. Armie Hammer, I don't know what it is about this guy, but I just cannot enjoy him very much when he's on screen. And I don't have anything personally against him. I don't know the guy. It's just he has a very sterile energy and appearance. He looks the same in every movie he's in. He doesn't feel very real to me, and I think that kind of goes into the rest of the trailer where it doesn't look. It all looks so, I don't know, it very like sanitized and not like almost like a 50 Shades of Grey vibe to it with the music.
I did get that vibe as well,
and almost Baz Luhrmann's The Great Gatsby to an extent also, except not nearly as. I mean, that movie is not.
It's very stylized.
That movie is not super good. The Great Gatsby, 2012, I think, or 2013 film, but it has style and it has its own thing. This doesn't look nearly as inspired as anything Baz Luhrmann would do. So I don't know. This is not something I'm excited about or looking forward to. If the reviews are somewhat good and positive, maybe I'll give it a look. If there's absolutely nothing else happening, but other than that, I don't know if I can really see myself sitting down and watching this for 2 hours.
I will say it does have big shoes to fill, considering that this is the second film adaptation of this novel, and the first was back in 1940, where Alfred Hitchcock made it, and it starred Laurence Olivier, and it won Best Picture. So I don't think this one's going to live up to those standards. If I had to take a guess right now, I don't think it's going to live up to those high standards. But I mean, I put in a request to get a screener of it. I might as well. It's on Netflix. It's going to be just something to fill the time as we're still in this sort of uncertain period without movies. So definitely, I'll definitely check it out. I'm not like you. I'm not super excited particularly for it, but looks interesting enough.
Yeah, it's funny too because this just came to me, but Armie Hammer, who I was just saying, is kind of always looks and feels the same in all of his movies. Kind of has like a sterile energy to him. And I just recalled that when Batman was being cast for the Matt Reeves movie, his name was kind of floating around or in the mix as a rumor. And I'm just thinking how him and Robert Pattinson could not be more completely opposite actors or performers. And I'm just glad that Batman dodged that bullet of potentially having Armie Hammer as
that would not have been great, I don't think.
I don't
know if that would have been a good fit.
I don't buy him at that at all. So maybe he'll surprise me. Maybe this will be good. But and he's also out currently slated sometime in October, I believe, in the Death on the Nile adaptation as well. So he's got a big couple movies coming out, which is good for him. Hopefully they're good, but we'll see.
Another trailer that we got, this one was a surprise for me because you hear Blumhouse, you hear horror movie, you hear, I don't know, just the buzzwords here that it's the state of movies right now. You can't be expecting much, like Blumhouse, for every great movie they put out, they have like 5 or 6 just like low budget, big earnings, like, that's their formula. They just kind of like produce those to make the big ones. This movie called Freaky, I was surprised by this. I think I want to see it. It's starring Vince Vaughn and Catherine Newton, who I only know her from Big Little Lies, so she's not a big name like Vince Vaughn that you just kind of recognize, but she is Reese Witherspoon's daughter. Yeah, Reese Witherspoon's daughter on that. Very good. But this is literally just like if Blumhouse did Freaky Friday. So the little synopsis is that after swapping bodies with a deranged serial killer, a young girl in high school discovers she has less than 24 hours before the change becomes permanent. So absolutely absurd. It's from the same people who did Happy Death Day, which I don't know if you've seen it. I never watched it, but I know Jake loved it. So
I have seen Happy Death Day. Have not seen the sequel. I liked the original, well enough. It was fine. It was a fun spin on the Groundhog Day, premise, and had a good, a couple good scares. It was funny. I suspect that this will be very much in that same vein, and based on this trailer and this synopsis that we have.
Right.
So
it just looks like fun. It looks like I'm not expecting a prestige horror movie. I'm not expecting anything more than like cheap jump scares.
Oh yeah, I don't think as far as scares or horror.
I think this is the perfect movie for like going in with the right expectations.
Yeah.
Like going in knowing exactly what you're going to get and then just sitting down and being pleased with that. Like Vince Vaughn, he's been in some great comedies. He's like kind of been off the map. He was horrific in The Binge that I watched last month on Hulu, the Hulu original. Just so to see him kind of get back into form, hopefully here, as he is if you didn't catch, he is the deranged serial killer. So it'll be him doing his take on being a teenage girl because she's the one stuck in his body. So that'll be interesting to see. But of course, as horror movies tend to do, this is coming out Friday the 13th in November. And it says it's in theaters. Who knows what's going to actually happen with that? This is the one that can obviously – I feel like this is like the definition of a VOD movie. And especially – we haven't talked about it, but Blumhouse is doing like their 8-in-1 horror movie. Have you seen that? Have you heard about that?
Yes, I've heard about it. I'm not super familiar with all the details. Like when
it's eight new Blumhouse horror movies are coming to Amazon beginning in October. So
okay,
they just kind of like, again, that like this goes to it is the definition of their like mass produced horror movies thing. So the first 4 are coming out in October, and then the rest of the other 4 come out in 2021.
Yeah.
The Lie and Black Box launching October 6th, and Evil Eye and Nocturne on October 13th. So
these are supposed to be like feature length films.
Correct. These are like real movies.
It's like a value pack.
Right. Like literally you go to Walmart and it's in the bin, you get the 4-in-1 DVD.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
It's that, but digital, it sounds like. So I could see maybe if theaters still aren't good in November, they could, with that kind of relationship with Amazon already, they could do the same here. But I mean, I'd probably check this out. I wouldn't pay $20 for it, I don't think. But
right,
depends on the situation. But
yeah, for sure,
it looks fun. Looks fun.
And that's all.
Another one.
It seems.
Yeah, another scary movie that does not look fun. This is going to be a quick,
scary,
30-second discussion. Netflix and Adam Sandler teaming up for Hubie Halloween. We got a trailer for that. It's coming out October 7th. And, let me just read off some of the cast members here, because this is like your classic Adam Sandler list. We've got Sandler, of course, and then Rob Schneider, Kevin James. Those are like the OGs with him. We just need to throw David Spade in there, and it would be basically grown-ups.
Yeah, exactly.
Julie Bowen from Modern Family is in there. Steve Buscemi, Ray Liotta, Maya Rudolph, Noah Schnapp from Stranger Things. So kind of a diverse
What are they
crew.
Paying these people?
Well, Adam Sandler has like a deal with Netflix where he just made a bunch of movies, but
like how are they doing these for fun? Like, do they really like have fun like making them, and that's why they kind of do them, or are they just getting like absurd paychecks to like?
I don't know, because I mean we know that Netflix, like with movies like Triple Frontier or Red Notice, like those things, they like are not shy of like shelling out the big bucks, but I can't imagine they're doing that for Hubie Halloween. But I mean, I think that the biggest story here is just the fact that Adam Sandler, he warned us. He said that if Uncut Gems got snubbed at the Oscars, he would make the worst movie ever. And I think that it's coming to fruition. The prophecy is being fulfilled after watching this trailer.
Yeah, it's I mean, it's the same schlock over and over again. It looks awful.
And his voice, he's got
I'll
like
never watch a second of it.
Oh no,
So-
I'm making you review this for the website. You're gonna write a full 1,200.
Hey,
word
hey,
review.
tender my
Do a
resignation.
trailer, a video
before that happens.
reaction.
Oh man, nope.
Another quick hitter here. That's enough Hubie Halloween. So we are moving on to some groundbreaking news, earth-shattering news that we all already knew, but it has been confirmed. I don't know what your level of interest is with this franchise, but
Zero.
Fast and the Furious F9 is officially taking things to outer space. Michelle Rodriguez confirmed on SiriusXM's The Jess Cagle Show that the franchise is indeed heading to outer space in the next installment. She said she herself is not going, but there were no specifics. But obviously that's something that has been hinted at, that it's like, okay, Fast and the Furious, we went from stealing TVs and VCRs in the first one to now going to outer space. Like, it's the next logical step, of course.
Of course.
But I mean,
course.
I've seen one Fast and the Furious movie, and I loved Hobbs and Shaw, just because, again, talking about movies that you have the right expectations going into it. That was a fun movie. But you know, outer space, I can't say I'm surprised by this news.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to comment too much on this, other than I'm not trying to be a snooty, uptight film cinephile here, but I just can't, like, I have absolutely no interest in these movies. The last one I saw was in 2015. It was the one where Paul Walker died, and afterwards, and they had to fix it and bring in his brothers to film it and everything. And it was a good, like, kind of closeout for his character. And I honestly thought they might just, like, stop the franchise, but no, they're going. They're not stopping anytime soon.
I mean, when they make $1 billion with every one, why stop?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So I mean,
people love these movies.
Surprised.
People love them, and they make a bunch of money. This is I'm not as like exclusive, I guess, with what I watch as you are. I'm more willing to just, like, check stuff out. So I would love to, like, go and watch all of these, I guess. But it's just like,
You should do it.
8 movies that I have to catch up with. I loved Hobbs and Shaw. I thought it was a lot of fun. I love The Rock. I've seen one of them, like I said, back in, like, middle school, I think. But I watched before I watched Hobbs and Shaw, I watched, like, a 50-minute recap of all of the movies. So, like, I kind of know the gist of everything, but
So you know that they're all the same, basically.
right. But I mean, you got Charlize in there as a great villain. I mean, Gal Gadot got one of her big breaks in one of these movies. So I mean, they're entertaining, I would say, from what I've seen and what I've gathered. But again, not a prestige movie, but sometimes you just need that, like, turn your brain off kind of thing. And now we're turning our brains off in outer space.
Yeah, no, it's just so funny to me, and people have been talking about this because they've been joking about it being in space for a long time. Everyone knows that. And people are just joking now that this is kind of officially coming out. It's just like the first movie was about stealing, like, it was street crime, and it was like stealing, like, DVD players and street.
I believe
racing.
they were VCR players.
And it's just like I'm just, like, amazed and dumbfounded at how this franchise has managed to evolve and progress. And hey, more power to them. I mean, they're clearly making a killing, and they're passionate about it. At least to some extent, because they have to devote 2 decades of their life to this franchise. So hey, this is the logical evolution, as you said.
All right, moving on to something a little more highbrow, I guess. We got some news yesterday about casting for a new Netflix film that is, I don't believe it has a date yet, but it's called The Harder They Fall. It is an all-black Western revenge thriller that Netflix is making. We already knew that Jonathan Majors and Idris Elba were going to be the stars, but we just recently found out that Zazie Beetz, Delroy Lindo, Lakeith Stanfield, and Regina King will be joining the cast, according to The Hollywood Reporter. Wow.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah, this is it's an all-star cast, and the the premise for this film is pretty cool. Jonathan Majors is the lead, it sounds like, and he's playing this outlaw and discovers that the man who killed his parents, and that this character is going to be played by Idris Elba, is being released from prison after 20 years or something, and Jonathan Majors is going to reunite his gang and track down Idris Elba and kind of get revenge for what he did to his parents. So it's like the premise is a classic revenge western, and I love westerns. They don't make them very much anymore, of course, but this is a very cool spin on it, and to have an all black cast, and
that's not something you would traditionally think of with a western, which is
an
exciting twist, because like obviously if it's like a time period correct western, like black people were like most likely slaves or something, like not in the freedom, like the position of freedom or being a lead or anything like that. So to kind of, I guess Django is kind of like a westernish vibe almost, but
it's definitely a western,
but that's the exception to most of the traditional stories in that genre. So I think that's going to be a very interesting twist and a cool angle to look at this story through.
Yeah, and the I want to say it was, I can't remember if it was the director or someone involved with the production, I believe, was tweeting just yesterday when this news came out about how a large percentage of cowboys in during the era of the Wild West, if you want to call it that, were either Hispanic, Mexican largely, or black. So there is plenty of historical precedent for non-white cowboys or people in the West. They just don't have any films or major stories about them that a lot of people know or are being told, especially right now. So it is cool to see something that we have not seen before necessarily, and the fact that it is not just an all black cast, but a cast where all 6 of these major players are basically in their prime. They're very well known. They're having success on television, in film. You couldn't ask for like a better, it's like an Avengers Assemble kind of project. And I think that's really exciting. And the fact that, of course, it's not going to be on Netflix and very accessible to a lot of people is great too. So we just have to cross our fingers that the final film will be as good as it sounds like it could be.
Also, Jay-Z is somehow involved with, I guess he's making the music or in some aspect.
He's a producer on the project as well.
Okay.
And there's another big producer on it. I can't remember his name, but he has basically produced all of Quentin Tarantino's movies. And of course, we all know Quentin Tarantino is hugely influenced by Westerns and Sergio Leone and stuff. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a little bit of that kind of style, that classic spaghetti Western style kind of carry over into this film if that producer is any indication. Because the director and the writer is not terribly experienced. I think he has one other feature film under his belt. So
I will say that this is one of the little excerpts from the Hollywood Reporter's article. Quote, the actors are now in cowboy camp, learning the skills of gunslinging and horseback riding, but will head to New Mexico for the shoot. And I thought that was just sounded great. That was like going to cowboy camp, learning how to do all these things. Like
that's so cool. Yeah.
No, that sounds like
they're going all out.
It sounds like fun, but it's also like sounds like it's gonna make a great movie. Like have everything be hopefully pretty authentic to what they would actually be doing.
For sure.
Final news: we're getting back into the coronavirus delays part of the news section. We had a long stretch over the summer, and now it's once again happening after somewhat, I guess, you would say in the aftermath of Tenet's kind of underwhelming performance in the U.S. at the box office. So Wonder Woman 1984 is moving from October 2nd. We're so close. Is moving from there to December 25th, Christmas Day opening. But that is supposedly not going to affect Dune, which is staying put on December 18th. So obviously, if things are back to normal, that would be a huge draw for Warner Brothers at Christmas time. And also Candyman. Universal moved Candyman from October 16th to TBD 2021. So we'll have to wait and see where that lands. But I saw Nia DaCosta posted a message about talking about how it's meant to reflect storytelling and community and everything, so that they want it to really be able to be seen on a big screen. And again, that's kind of, we talked about it when Halloween had to move, but just sort of that the horror movies kind of need to stick to that fall season. So you can't really, you can, but like it obviously works better if it's in the fall, specifically in October. So, I mean, this may be moving a complete year.
Yeah, I mean, it could be moving a year. It could be moving to the spring or summer. You know, there have been examples of films doing well in those time frames too. So, and it's so like you can talk and speculate all we want, but no one has any idea when we can do this stuff safe. Like, I've been to a movie theater in the last 2 weeks in the United States. It was safe. I felt safe. It was fine, but it's not like that everywhere. And there's no way of knowing for sure when people are going to be fully open across the U.S. or in all the major markets in the world. Or if they are open, when they're going to go from 30% capacity, 40% capacity to 75, 80, 100. So, and that's key to, of course, building up, you know, box office receipts and making enough money to cover a production or greenlight a sequel and all these things that go into big movies and franchises and all that stuff. So it's just hard. But, you know, good. I mean, good for Nia DaCosta to kind of come out and say that. And, you know, that's, you know, her film, that's her baby. And I think she should be able to do it when and how she wants to do it. And it's good that she's not, even though she really wants it to be in theaters, I'm sure she's dying for everyone to see it. She's not trying to force it in just, you know, next month. So we'll see how it goes. These bigger movies, of course, Wonder Woman 1984 and Dune. As you said, very, very close Wonder Woman was to being released. It was just less than a month. And now it's Christmas Day. So I can't like really wrap my head around thinking that far ahead at this point. But we'll see how things are. It's not impossible that it could be a better situation than it is now. But both of these movies could end up coming out on the dates that they have now, be in somewhat limited capacity, limited release, and then slowly roll out and be a success, or one of them could get delayed. Both of them could get delayed. We really don't know. So you know, these studios and filmmakers have way more invested in these things than we could ever imagine. And you have to think that they're going to do the smartest and, you know, safest thing financially and for theater chains and for audiences, you know, everything. So we'll see.
Yeah, I would say it
down.
makes, obviously we are the huge Dune fans. We want to see Dune. Dune is supposed to be an Oscar push, so they want to try and keep that ahead of the February 28th deadline. So I feel like if anything, if they do have to move something out of that they should just try and leave Dune where it is, and then just move Wonder Woman. Like, go ahead and move Wonder Woman to the spring or to the summer or something like that. That if you need to try and keep Dune there.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much right. And I've been saying that for months and months now, that they're pretty much at all costs going to release Dune in December. If they have to, if they think it's just not viable at all, I'm sure that they will push it to potentially January, potentially February, because the Oscar qualification, as you were pointing out, that does last. The cutoff is February 28th. So they have plenty of time. They have plenty of space to push it back. But again, we don't know. December could be the same as it is now, could be worse, could be better. And January and February could be equally as unpredictable. And this is an issue that's going to go surely into next year, into next summer, through to you know, next fall and winter. So just gotta, you know, play with it, you know, roll with the punches, and wait and support these things when they do arrive, however they choose to arrive.
That we do, but until then, all we have to do is just analyze the heck out of trailers, right?
Yeah.
That's what we're doing today. That's what we did. Our reaction video, we did our reaction article, this is going to be a little bit more in depth. We've had nearly a week to kind of speculate, to really let this Dune trailer settle and let us like think about it. And of course, Johnny's the one here who's been scrubbing through it, taking freeze frames, like really just diving into it. So he's going to take the charge here as we break this down. But for all of you out there who are really trying to figure out every single thing you can from this 3 minutes and 5 seconds of footage, then this is the perfect thing for you.
Yeah, and as you said, I have been every day, when I wake up in the morning, before I go to bed, I have to, throw on the trailer and go through and check things out. And it's funny because when these things come out, they're on Twitter and they're on social media and YouTube, and they're just so damn compressed. The footage can be, a little bit blurry, a little bit fuzzy, like the colors and the lighting, it doesn't, look exactly right. And so I've gone from watching social media, grainy, compressed Twitter footage to a 1080p, like really pretty good looking one. And then now finally, just last night, I was able to get my hands on the 4K, like crispy, perfectly decompressed footage. So yeah, there's a lot to go through here. And the great thing about this is that, I may be a big fan, but Zach has read the book. He's familiar with all the characters and the world, and that's very useful as well. So how do you want to go through this, Zach? Do you just want to kind of go through chronologically and kind of touch on different shots?
I would say that, I guess, for some of the people who have not watched the trailer reaction video on YouTube, just first let's talk about some general takeaways, I guess, before we get into the like frame by frame kind of breakdown that we want to do for all of the diehard fans. But just, obviously Wednesday afternoon, 12 o'clock hit, and we got the interviews with Stephen Colbert and the cast, and then that followed up with the trailer. But we were both refreshing our computer constantly, getting ready to check it out. But I was blown away by this trailer. I know we just did our favorite trailers recently on an episode, but I know this would skyrocket up your list. But I think one of my biggest takeaways from that was talking about how the accessibility, we were talking about it with some other stuff earlier this episode, but like this Dune it's a big story. It's a grand scale. It's very deep into sci-fi, and it can be sort of dense if you're trying to read the book or get into it. There's a lot of terminology. It comes with a glossary in the back. So, that's something that you have to adjust to while reading. But so that can kind of turn off some people who are maybe not super into sci-fi or really invested in it. But I think that the trailer did a nice job of making it this big, exciting, thrilling story that, okay, it's going to please the diehard fans, but it's also going to draw in these people who are like, oh, what's that new Zendaya movie, the new Timothée Chalamet movie? And they're like, okay, that trailer makes it like, I'm going to go see this movie now. So I think it did a great job of like just enticing everyone, that it wasn't just for the yous out there or even someone to my level of interest.
The use. That's that pretty much sums it up, appropriately. It is showing off its star power. It's showing off the spectacle and the action and the amazing visual effects. And the point of the accessibility, I think, is even hammered home more because, for example, NFL Kickoff was this past Thursday, a couple days ago, and Dune was one of the sponsors. They had multiple TV spots.
From Denis Villeneuve.
Oh, my God. There's one N in his name. How did you get Villeneuve? Al Michaels. But anyway, the multiple TV spots were all advertising the trailer. It was saying, go check out the full trailer online. And it had, big explosions. And it had Jason Momoa being a badass. And it had Timothée Chalamet and Zendaya. And it looked awesome. Getting to see on TV, it was cool, some of the shots, and it did its job. I noticed a lot of people on Twitter were talking about it and saying, oh, that looks fire, it looks badass, all that kind of stuff. So, getting that kind of audience in there, whether it's just sports fans or which are a big part of the general audience and everything, is doing its job. So, and I've on the other side of that, hardcore fans like myself and people I've talked to on Reddit and just the Dune Discord and everything, they're all just as excited, if not more so. And that's the important thing when you're trying to get people into theater and make something a success.
So, I mean, other than that, I would say it looked great. It sounded great. The cast was incredible.
It's a Denny.
It was a really well put together trailer of like showing enough story, showing enough action to, again, just like pique everyone's interest. So I guess, do you want to take charge now and kind of go through some of your findings, some of your theories as we work through the 3 minutes?
Yeah, let's do it.
Take it away.
Yeah, so hopping into this right off the bat, we get Paul. He's kind of this little voiceover talking about he feels this thing awakening inside of him, and it's kind of a touch to the sleeper awaken, famous phrase which is partly from the book and partly from the David Lynch film. Then we get these really cool shots, stunning, golden, bright shots of him and Zendaya's character Chani, who's a member of the Fremen who live in the deep desert on Arrakis. This desert planet.
It's interesting hearing you. Just quick aside, like, because I've never watched the other movies, so I've only read the book and like said these words in my head. But like, so I say the Freeman, I say Arrakis, I say there's something else that you had said previously. So I don't know. It's funny to hear this out loud.
Yeah, I think that's the part of the fun with Dune is that when you're reading it, some words you're just totally not sure how to pronounce them. I'm some of the words, the ones you just pointed out, I would say it's definitely Arrakis. It's definitely the Fremen.
Damn.
And then and then there's lots of debate about some of these other things. They're like, is it the Harkonnens or is it the Harkonnens?
I say Harkonnen.
Is it Chani or is it Chaney? I think that whatever they say in the film is going to be consistent through the film, and then that's kind of going to become the standard. But yeah, so no one that's excited about the movie or not necessarily a fan of the book, don't be worried about pronunciation so much. But yeah, we get these really cool shots of them in the beginning, and right off the bat, they have them kissing. This very, very tight close up of them, mouth to mouth, and that's totally hitting at the Timothée Chalamet fans, the Zendaya fans. These people they're young, they're good looking. You got to bring people in with the appeal of that. So that's smart on the marketing department's end, but also for fans of the book, it's really cool because these characters, they have a legit romance, and we like seeing them together. It's like kind of a, when you're watching Batman or you're seeing the Batman trailer, you want to see Batman and Catwoman together. And so this is kind of playing into that as well. And the way that this is lit and the way it's colored plays into a little something that I'm not going to totally get into here. I'm going to talk about a little bit, but a color kind of theory that I have, or a prediction that I have about the way that Denis Villeneuve is going to use color in this movie is some of these shots, for people who didn't know too much about Dune, it's hinted at and talked about a little bit in this trailer, is that Paul is prescient, and Zach, for people who don't understand maybe that concept necessarily, what is prescience and how does that play into Paul and his kind of destiny and the way that he kind of sees the world?
Basically, now correct me if I'm wrong with your wealth of knowledge, but basically he kind of gets like visions of flashes of stuff that's going to happen in the future. They say it in the trailer, like, has something ever played out the exact way that you saw it in your head? Mm-hmm. He sees these visions early on in the book of Chani, and then eventually when they meet, you hear it in the trailer. He's like, I know you. Mm-hmm. So he uses this skill, this prescience, to not really like predict the future, but like use it as like a map to like figure out how he wants to approach different things. So exactly. That your theory basically is that is what the scenes that are lit this way are, correct? Yeah,
so right here, and it's edited in a way that suggests this to an extent. Of course, the editing and trailer.
Because when he wakes up, it changes to like extremely dark. Like
and also the fact that he is waking up. And Chani, there's this quick shot between the kiss and him waking up. That's Chani, I mean, she looks. I mean, she's a dreamlike figure, and she's lit as such. She's positioned as such. Her nose plugs aren't in. She looks a little bit. She looks not even a little bit. She looks very different here than she does in the later shot where they're presumably meeting, or you see her in the real world, in the present. So that is definitely.
And she also, at that point, she says, she like whispers, Paul, and that's like what wakes him up.
Yes,
so that makes me think the same way that you're saying, like, that makes me think like this is her in the dream, like reaching out, calling to him.
Yes, exactly. And, you know, these other shots, while in Denis Villeneuve's other films, he's used yellow and orangish and colors and tones to suggest certain things about the story, about the narrative, and the world. And I think that that's exactly something he's going to utilize here. And that's something that I was looking forward to, is because he's had dream sequences in his other films. He's had surrealist elements in his other films. And I think that's perfect experience for something like Dune, which has the prescient stuff and it has just more trippy elements to it. So he wakes up in his bed. Now, the cool part about this bed, I mean, it's blink and you miss it, but this bed, when I wrote my article in the analysis, and my brain was moving a million miles a minute, and I hadn't spoken to anyone else about the trailer or the footage too much, I said that this bed looked like it was his home on Caladan, which is the water and Earth-like planet that they live on before they have to move to Arrakis. And the key thing for that, for me, was the headboard, because it has these fish kind of, it's like sculpted into the headboard. It's very like beautifully designed, and it looks very old and has a metallic kind of finish to it. And there's kind of bubbles on it and other like little maybe sea creatures. But I actually, after talking to some people, and people came to me and were asking me about it, in the book, they talk more about his headboard, and they kind of get into specifics about his headboard on Arrakis in his bedroom there.
Because of the hidden dart thing.
Yeah,
right?
and there's a thing in Dune in the book where that is specifically tied into his headboard in a very key scene. And there's actually, if you look at the very first frame when he wakes up before it cuts to the longer shot, there's a piece or a hole in the headboard. And I'm not going to spoil that necessarily here, but that is, again, indicative. And then when it pulls back to this longer shot, you can see it has the big, blocky, hard, brutalist-looking architecture that is more like Arrakis and more like what we've seen in their residence there. So that's a good thing that people pointed out. So thank you for that. And then moving on from there, I mean, this is the first big epic shot, right? We see who do you think these characters are, Zach? From what we know?
I mean, this is, so the shot is the silhouettes of the backs of two people, a man and a woman, as they overlook across the desert and see some sort of structure that's like just been ransacked. It's burning. There are ships invading. I would definitely say that this is Paul and Lady Jessica, Rebecca Ferguson's character, the mother-son duo, as they're on their way of escaping from the raid. I don't know how specific we want to get in like plot details here.
Yeah.
It's hard because like obviously this is
it's an old book.
We're trying to do the same thing the trailer did, of the balance between diehard fans and people.
Exactly.
So I guess the diehard fans that are listening know what we're talking about. But like I think that this is Paul and Lady Jessica on their escape. Yeah.
I think it's very safe to say that that's what we're looking at. I love the relationship between Paul and Jessica in the book. And so I'm so excited. I mean, the casting could not be more perfect. Rebecca Ferguson is just the ultimate combination of, you know, she has grace and she's, you know, beautiful, and she can play this very, you know, high intelligence. If anyone's seen the recent Mission Impossible films where she plays Ilsa Faust, who's like this, you know, super spy, I mean, she can bring that physicality and that intelligence and that kind of, you know, almost intimidating personality to this. And I think I'm excited to see her and Chalamet play off each other more. You see these crafts in the air above this huge, you know, this is a big landscape. This is like a city. And there's two massive ships, one much bigger than the other, at least closer to the camera. And then you see maybe some smaller crafts. Maybe they're flying out of these bigger crafts. And then flames and smoke. It looks very similar to, for people that have seen Rogue One, which was also shot by cinematographer Greg Fraser. It has a similar look to it in the color and kind of the design there. And then, of course, we get this great, beautiful shot of the interior of what looks like a library. There's books and bookshelves all over the walls on Caladan, which is the Atreides homeworld. This is Paul meeting the Reverend Mother, Gaius Helen Mohayim, who is played by Charlotte Rampling, the Oscar-nominated actor. And she, again, I mean, the casting, I'm not going to go over and over every single time we bring someone else new into it. The casting's perfect, okay? There's not anyone I would change. It's immaculate. The vibes I'm getting from her as the Reverend Mother, it's pinpoint. It's almost mechanical, and there's a bit of like a ruthless edge to it, but still like, I'm old, I'm wise, but I could literally kill you with like, and you would be able to do nothing about it. And for people who don't know, this is a very pivotal scene, and the scene plays out here throughout basically the entire first half of the trailer. Zach, what is going on here?
All right, this one's going to be, I might need some help, but it's just because of the specifics here. But this is again, pronunciations. Gom Jabbar.
Gom Jabbar, yeah.
But this is like a ceremony, basically, going back to like Paul's skills, his prescience. They think that he's like, there's a prophecy that he's going to be this big leader in the world. And this is almost like a test to see if he has what it takes, if he has the proper skills to survive this, because if he is the person who's prophesized, then he will be able to pass this no problem. But if not, he's going to die. So he's going through this test. He has to put his hand into the box. And as she says, it's extreme pain in there. And if he pulls his hand out, he dies because he's got the needle, knife, whatever this is.
It is
right
it's
up to his...
the needle she's holding is the Gom Jabbar. That's what it's called.
So that's like up to the neck. And it's like, if he backs out, it's game over.
Yeah. Because the needle, of course, it's very sharp, but it's poison. There's poison in the needle. And so, yeah, it's a pivotal scene. I mean, it sets everything in motion. It's the very beginning of the novel. And everything about the scene looks perfect. One of the other little things I just have to say real quick is I love how this box, to my knowledge, in the books and in the films and stuff, there's no name for it. It's just everyone calls it the pain box, which is just like, it's so perfectly weird in Dune. But it looks beautiful. I mean, these props are just so cool. Like I would drop 50 or 100 bucks on a cool
on a pain box to put
replica
on
of a pain box or a Gom Jabbar or something like that. But yeah, everything, the designs, the costume, the props, the set is just huge and so detailed. So this again plays out. She's wearing this really neat and scary kind of veil on her face, puts the needle up to him, and then, yep, that hurts. Okay, so it's Timothée Chalamet. He is going all out. Like, he is so into the scene. Is going to be probably one of the most intense scenes in the entire film, just because it's one-on-one, it's face-to-face. You know, for the actors, it must have been really kind of, I mean, that's a big deal. And he has to wear it all on his face. He's doing this scream. The piercing sound effect they use here is just, I mean, it's very kind of startling. Like it kind of raises the hair on the back of your neck when I hear that noise. And then we get this awesome, huge shot of Caladan, which is, they filmed this in Norway, which is a beautiful, I mean, I can't praise like the locations enough, and they picked them very, very well. We have these two massive ships in the sky. These are probably being used to help transport the Atreides to Arrakis, to their new home. One cool little detail that I picked out, not necessarily right away, but when I got the higher definition version of it, but you can still see it on YouTube and on Twitter. These big ships are in the sky, so they kind of draw your eye. But then down by the water, which goes out to the ocean, you can see a small craft flying above the water, and it is zooming. I mean, it's moving so fast. I mean, it's almost gone before you can see it. But I love those little details. Like, you maybe don't notice it right away, but it kind of adds to the realistic and the lived in feel of it. So then we get the shot that was the first ever revealed shot from the movie, which is beautiful. I mean, look at the depth in some of these images. I know Greg Fraser's using these new kind of anamorphic lenses. He's using them on the Batman as well. And this guy is just like hitting home runs right now with these movies. But just look, I mean, you have Paul, and then you have the beach and the cliffside and the ocean that extends behind him, and then these ships in the sky. And then we go into, the shields. Everyone loves the shields. Everyone loves, in the book, like they're very, again, I'm going to kind of turn to Zach here and have him touch a little bit more. And
I'm explaining everything in like the layman's terms that, that you would probably explain in too much depth or in with too much Dune jargon. So that's what I'm here for. So the shields, that's what we're talking here. So this is in the book, these are attached to the belt, right?
Yes. Yeah.
These are, that's where it is, but it seems to be like a handheld kind of thing that they strap on. But I love, this is one of the things we talked about in the video. I love the look of this, that similar to like how you would do, I don't know, like an invisibility cloak or like the Invisible Man, anything like that within another movie. But to kind of like, okay, it's on, so you don't have to show it all the time. But when there is impact, it's like almost like a glitch effect. On the outside of them with the blue shadow. Very, very well done, I would say. I think that it's clean. It looks very nice. And then you have, I don't know if you want to get into this here or later, but another one of your theories based on watching this about the different colors, how they're going to come into play when it comes to the shields.
Yeah, and I'm not going to talk about that right in a second. I'll definitely talk about it when it comes up. But yeah, I totally agree. They've done it. I mean, it's so well done. If anyone has seen the David Lynch version, these shields in that are so bad. They're so laughable. They're basically these, 1984 computer generated images. I mean, it's basically a big orange block that just sits on them as they move around. It's so bad. And here it's subtle. It's not on 100% of the time. So it's saving the VFX people a lot of hassle probably. And it's also not distracting too much the audience from what's going on when they aren't actually hitting each other. So that's cool. Going on to this, really, I love the back and forth here between I love this shot. Okay, definitely going to talk about this because this is something I actually didn't mention in my article. Duke Leto, she's talking about in this back and forth between the Reverend Mother and Paul, she's basically prodding him. She's talking down to him. She's very condescending, and she's basically, criticizing and poking fun at his family, his lineage, saying that your family's never been good at ruling, and that comes into the shot of Oscar Isaac as Duke Leto. This could be either Duke Leto's hand because they all wear these dark green, almost black gloves and coats and jackets, and there's a hand on this stone slab that has these very intricate carvings in it, and you can see there's some sort of text in a fictional language on the rim of it, and I can't wait to see what that how much that plays into it. They had the Reddit AMA a couple months ago where the language creator for this film was talking about. He did 4 different languages. He did a sign language. He did a spoken language. He did just written languages. And this is a very accomplished guy. He worked on The Witcher for Netflix, and he worked on Game of Thrones for HBO. So I'm very excited to see how those factor in. And then the image itself that's carved into the stone is Paul's grandfather. It's Duke Leto's father, who was killed on Caladan while hunting a bull, essentially. It's kind of similar to how in Game of Thrones, King Robert was killed hunting a boar. He got gored in the side and then died shortly afterwards. Here you can see that image. He's being gored in the chest. He's holding a spear, a lance type of weapon, which I think will also reappear later on in the trailer. And so that's just really cool. Just the attention to detail, kind of building the world, building the story. it'll be interesting to see if they actually comment on the old Duke Leto's father, or if they're just going to kind of have these images touch on it. But Oscar Isaac looks amazing. Then we have this big grand shot of Caladan, Castle Caladan. That's where they live. It's a massive, palatial kind of place right there on the ocean. And then inside we can see the Greek inspiration. You see these old vases on each side, the stone columns, this archway. Very, very cool. And then again, that kind of depth that goes in. You see the bookshelves. You see people, basically attendants or servants of the Atreides helping pack and move things out of the castle. And then here we get this first look at Rebecca Ferguson. She has tears in her eyes. She looks kind of emotional. If you've lived somewhere basically your entire life, anyone can relate to that feeling of having, if you've ever had to move away. I don't know if Zach much can attest to that maybe, but even for someone going to college or something, it's hard, and I think that's kind of cool that they're bringing that in, especially for Lady Jessica. And oh my God, this is one of my favorite shots, and I pointed it out during the reaction video. But when Duke Leto he comes up and he puts his hand on her neck to kind of like comfort her, and then she puts in and moves her hand to hold his. The relationship, how would you describe it in the book, Zach, between Lady Jessica and Duke Leto? Because they're not a traditional couple or a traditional
right. It's not like they're not like ooey gooey. They're not like super like out with their romance towards each other or anything. But it's like a relationship of mutual respect. Like the whole thing is like they're, again, correct me on any technicalities, but like he's the Duke. They're not like officially married.
They're not married, right?
It's like she's kind of like bound to him almost, and so like they're, I guess, like technically speaking, they're not like equals, but right. He definitely sees her, like other people may not see that, but he definitely sees her as an equal, respects her, like goes to her for guidance on things. So there's like a very like revered relationship between them about just like how their mutual respect works. So I think that's kind of is one instance where you may be able to see the tenderness between them that's not so overt.
Yeah. And again, the fact that they do have that kind of close-up shot of their like hands together. I just love the little, like, it's the small moments, I think, it's in Dune and big things like that with the characters that they make you care and they make you understand the connections and the emotional elements. And just touching a little bit more on how you described the relationship, Lady Jessica is a member of this organization called the Bene Gesserit. And so she was assigned almost to be with the Duke. And she came when she was very young, probably like maybe a teenager, like 17, 18 or, early 20s. And it's basically shown or implied that he is a decent amount bit older than her. But there's, in the story and through what they say and kind of what you can infer, he never like forced himself on her. He never pushed her to do anything she wasn't comfortable with. And of course they have Paul and they, he loves them both and they love him. And it's a good like family dynamic, but they're not married, and there is kind of a stigma about the Bene Gesserit, and they have these special powers. They're incredibly powerful, and that plays into the respect aspect as well, because while the Duke is incredibly powerful in his own way and strong and capable, if the Duke and Lady Jessica were to fight, I mean, she would kill him before he could probably like lift his finger. So that is kind of part of that power dynamic, which is interesting, and plays into how other members of the family and how other people they meet perceive Lady Jessica and the Duke. Then we get finally we go to Arrakis, and they have these epic shots of the sand dunes. They filmed in Abu Dhabi, which for fans of Star Wars and some of the bigger movies that have come out more recently, The Force Awakens filmed in Abu Dhabi with these big sand dunes. Lady Jessica here, this is one of the coolest looks at the costume design, and this is something that I did not expect whatsoever. Is this veil that they wear. It's like translucent. And you see two other women standing behind her wearing similar veils. But not only is she wearing a veil, but she's wearing like a very complex and like bejeweled headdress, which is, I mean, it's glimmering in the sunlight. It's just gorgeous. And I'm curious to see what the actual context will be of that. If they'll kind of explain why they're wearing it or what that's about. Because one of the things about Dune is in the book, Frank Herbert, the author, doesn't really go into a ton of detail describing how characters look or what they're wearing or what rooms are designed like or buildings. It's a lot left to the imagination. I'm not sure how much you can attest to that, Zach, how you feel the same way, but
Yeah, I mean, I would say that with the exception of maybe like the still suits that they wear in the desert,
oh yeah,
which is more of like a technical so that you can be aware of the functionality, not so
Exactly.
much like so you can imagine the look.
Mhm.
But I mean, with the exception of that and some of the other, like the vehicles are described a little bit better. But I agree with you that it's nice to see this like open interpretation and to see the room for somebody to take this, like for Denny or whoever's, I'm not sure the name of whoever's in charge of costumes, but for them to be able to have that opportunity to make it their own a little bit.
Yeah, totally agree. And then Duke Leto here, he's wearing his armor, and I love this glance that he like passes back to who we assume is Paul here, the way it's edited. It's just like the door is descending on the landing craft, and it's like,
You ready for this?
Like, it's kind of the point of no return, you know. It's they're here and they're stepping out, and that's when the music kicks in. Eclipse by Pink Floyd, this really cool new arrangement that supposedly Hans Zimmer has done for the trailer. And wow, I mean, look at the scale of this shot right here. Definitely one of the jaw droppers, I would say, especially with the way the music comes
You
in.
mean the Jawa droppers? Like the Jawa sand crawlers from Star Wars?
Yeah, there's I mean, these things, oh my God. Like, I mean, these are building sized ships.
Right.
They're, you know.
I think you can also notice like
I mean, look at the people.
But then like there's another ship, like a small, like sort of like a transport thing
Yeah,
that is
yep.
going across in the back. And it's like,
Yep.
okay, so if people are riding in that, then that just shows how big the other things are.
Yeah, and that's a great catch. There's at least one small transport vehicle kind of floating in the back here, most likely ferrying people from the big ships to the palace or the city. There are two other crafts in the air in the background. Again, they're just doing a great job with using the depth, kind of drawing the eye, the scale of these things. I mean, it is as epic as you would expect. And these soldiers are kind of in formation. You see banners at the head of each, probably a platoon, using my JROTC experience from high school. And the ships themselves, I mean, they look weathered. They look old. They don't look sanitized or like brand new or anything. So that's a nice attention to detail. And the crazy part about this, for anyone who doesn't know the book, and I'm not going to spoil anything, it's just a fun detail. These ships are not the ships that they use to get to the planet. They're what they transport the people on and probably different elements that they're moving. But they get on these ships on the planet, and then they ride them up out of the atmosphere, and then they put these ships inside of a larger ship that carries all of these massive ships to and from different planets. So I'm very curious to see how much of that is going to be included in the film. That's kind of, it's a very small detail of moving from one planet to the other in the book, and they may save that for part 2, they may not, but yeah, it's a very, very cool designs here, very brutalist, of course. Then we get this quick shot of Paul and Gurney Halleck, played by Josh Brolin, there on his right. That was who he was sparring with earlier. He's basically his best friend. He's his mentor. He trains him in combat. He trains him in the ways of war. He's the war master. And then behind him, we see, you kind of have to zoom in a little bit, but Thufir Hawat, who is played by Stephen McKinley Henderson, which is just a great choice that I would never have expected. He's an older actor. He has kind of a softness to him. Denis Villeneuve said that he's, in an interview kind of called him like a teddy bear kind of vibe to him, even though he's incredibly smart, incredibly deadly. Not even necessarily in combat and physically, but his brain, for those of you who do not know, he is a mentat. And Zach will explain what that is right now.
Basically, he is a human version of a computer, because this is like to the point where I believe they're referred to as thinking machines in the book. They are no longer, which are computers. Those are no longer existing in the world. Like we're so far past modern human life as we know it. And so he serves as like an all-knowing computer resource for whoever he's reporting to, which is the Atreides family.
Right. Yeah, he's in.
And I love his umbrella. I love his parasol.
Yes. It's such a cool little, like, it's almost like something, in Blade Runner, they have those little, umbrellas and things like that for the rain and stuff. It's just a cool little prop that they have. Again, I feel like
it also works to like, because when you're with Paul as the young Duke, he had like these two guys are around him quite often.
Yeah.
And that it works to kind of juxtapose Gurney and Thufir, because like obviously he's like the prim and proper kind of like computation device. He's got this parasol. He's very, very like straight and narrow, versus Gurney, who's more like, he's the musician, he's the fighter, he's more rough and rugged. So I think it works to distinguish them.
Type guy. Yeah, exactly. That's a great point. And then off to the sides here, in each side of the shot, you can see ornithopters are parked. There's some in the background. I mean, these vehicles are massive, and they did build practical, full-scale ornithopters, and that's amazing. This big wall back here, I'm not exactly sure. This may be a building. This may be like a command center. This may be just a security wall. I'm not totally sure, but this is very, very clearly a tarmac or some big landing area. Then, of course, if you want to talk about juxtaposition between, kind of the mentors of Paul, we get Jason Momoa entering as Duncan Idaho, the sword master, the biggest badass in the universe. Tell us a little bit about Duncan from what you've read.
Well, the quote from him was something along the lines of being the best. Was it the universe or the world? The best. He
said the
fighter.
World, and then he said in the galaxy, for that matter.
The galaxy. Excuse. I just wanted to get that terminology correct. But yeah, I mean, he seems to be bringing his Aquaman charm and like carelessness, like not carelessness, but just sort of like that bro persona.
A little bit of
almost.
bombast.
Yeah, that he's just like bringing that to this world, which has so many like strong and not prim and proper as in the way I used it with Thufir, but like with Duke Leto or someone who's like more solemn and like focused on like getting everything done. But This is like, he's kind of like the party guy that's like just out here to kick ass and take names. So that's Duncan Idaho, and I love this relationship between them, to see him run up and give Paul the big bear hug. Yeah. And you can tell that they're like, that they have this, even though Gurney is like his fighting mentor or something, they have like this still sort of like younger person connection.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Because there's definitely a big, there's age differences between all three of these mentors that Paul has, and Duncan is the most, there's a reason that in the book he's sent ahead by Duke. Duke Leto chooses Duncan to go to Arrakis first, kind of, get a basis for what the situation's like there, and then kind of report back to him. And they're reuniting here. He's wearing a still suit, it looks like. He has the robe and kind of a headscarf kind of thing trailing behind him. Again, there's people standing in the back. There's a huge structure in the far distance. There's an ornithopter with its ramp down. There's an ornithopter here with the cockpit open. Guys running by. It feels real. It feels like a military facility where people are running around. They're kind of just getting things set up. In this next shot where he picks him up and he gives him the hug, you see two guys wearing armor walking by, which is different from what these kind of more basic dress uniforms are with the hats. Quick shot of Stilgar, who pulls off his mask. Stilgar is the leader of the Fremen, and the Fremen are the natives of Arrakis, as we've said. They live in the deep desert. They have been there for many, 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 many years. And they keep to themselves. And the people who run the planet, whether it was the Harkonnens who were in charge before the Atreides came, or the Atreides now that they're running the show, the relationship is very kind of strange, and part of the job is maintaining communications, having some sort of relationship, because you have to, of course, export spice and keep things under control. Then we get these shots of these massive military force. They're kneeling, they're standing up, they're in formation. I mean, there's got to be at least, 6, 7, 8,000 people here. It's like a legion or legions of what I'm going to say are Sardaukar. They're wearing these grayish, whitish uniforms. We see more of them later in the trailer. And the Sardaukar, for those of you who do not know, are basically the most fearsome fighting force in the entire universe.
It's like if everyone in the platoon was Duncan, Idaho.
Exactly. Yeah, they're incredibly. Look at this guy. Look at these people. And this planet that they're on is what I believe is Seleucus Secundus, which is it's a prison planet of sorts, where the emperor of the universe, the Imperium, will send prisoners. He'll send different people to train and become. These people are fanatical. They're not just people who enlist and they choose to be part of this. They are almost brainwashed. They're raised. They're broken down and built back up to be dedicated to the emperor. They'll die for the emperor. It's like if you had, stormtroopers are, of course, always serving Darth Vader and the emperor in like Star Wars, for example. This is like if you took the stormtroopers and just made them like insanely dangerous and like violent and gave them, bloodthirst and everything. It would be, tantamount to that. And then you see these huge ships that are parked nearby, and then rain falling. It looks like a hellish landscape. There's stone everywhere, which is basically how it's described in the novel. Dave Bautista as Raban Harkonnen, the Beast, as everyone calls him. That's his nickname. He's a demented guy. He is violent, as you would expect with the Harkonnens. The Harkonnens are the enemy family to the Atreides. They are their blood rivals. It's almost like in Game of Thrones, using that as another example. It's like the Lannisters versus the Starks. The Starks would be the Atreides. The Lannisters would be the Harkonnens. But I mean, the Harkonnens make the Lannisters look like, they look feeble and, very tame in comparison. And he has this very cool ghost-like appearance to him. He looks pale and sickly.
It's like Voldemort.
Yeah, there's almost like a Voldemort type vibe. His mouth is open. You can like see him breathe and like lift and like heave up and down. Then we get the quick shot. Our only real brand new glimpse of the Baron Vladimir Harkonnen,
with the exception of the Funko Pop.
With the exception of the Funko Pop that has been spilled online. You can see this is Stellan Skarsgård. He's a well-known actor. He was in a couple of the Thor films, I believe, and maybe one or two of the Avengers films. He was in the first Avengers movie.
Pirates of the Caribbean as well as Bootstrap Bill Turner.
Bootstrap Bill Turner, yeah, Will Turner's father. Here he is playing, I think this is a prosthetic nose. He has, a bald cap on. He's supposed to be like 600 pounds. Of course, Stellan Skarsgård is not 600 pounds, and he would not ever be able to eat enough without dying to become 600 pounds. So he is, he has this chin, he has his neck, he has this these shoulders that are just massive. He says, "Kill them." He has this very guttural voice, and he just sounds very, very, kind of scary, which is more than appropriate. And then we get this epic shot of the palms. Now, Zach, do you remember the significance of the palms in the novel?
It was very symbolic because of obviously the planet Arrakis is it's the desert planet. That's the whole premise here, that water is scarce. And so at the Atreides compound where they're moving into, the border is lined with palm trees, and it's just like a flex showing like the luxuriousness, the lavishness of their wealth. Mm-hmm. That a palm tree that takes up, I don't remember the exact conversion, but the amount of water it takes to grow a palm tree and to maintain that is enough to sustain a whole tribe of freemen. So that's like, to then burn those is just showing like the utter like debilitation, the destruction of the Atreides, of their wealth, of everything that they stand for, and also just the Harkonnens like ruthlessness and the desire to waste all of that as they're attacking.
Yeah, and you can see here in the back, all right, so we have these palm trees in the foreground, which are, I mean, they're real palm trees. This is a real fire. And then in this huge like area back here, this big, almost like maybe a field or like a big street or something. I mean, there's dozens and dozens, maybe over 100 soldiers. And then on the far background, like near a wall, there's another line of palm trees, which are also in flames. So again, very cool way of using depth there. And then we see Paul saying, this is an extermination. This is, my family is being hunted down one by one. This is not good. This is not what I signed up for. And then a quick glimpse of Chang Chen, very accomplished international actor. He is playing Dr. Wellington Yui. He has this diamond on his forehead, which is in the universe, it's a sign of basically this conditioning to, whereas in real life, doctors all take an oath to serve by any means, never refuse to treat someone if they have the opportunity to. This diamond is basically saying, I will do anything and everything to serve the Atreides family. I will protect them at all costs. I will save their lives and do what I can as a doctor, essentially. And then we see this. This shot. My jaw was on the floor at this point. These Sardaukar troops are dropping in and falling to the surface. They're in formation. They're falling right into formation. They have swords out. They look fucking amazing. They have these cool. They have helmets on where you can kind of see through, kind of not. There's like a little bit of a tint to them. They have a mouthpiece on it. We get a close up here in a second. But it's just very. I can't. Oh my god. I'm just the way that they kind of designed these different groups and fighters and their armor and suits. I think they'd done a really good job with differentiating and kind of having some cool ideas while also throwing back to some more maybe retro elements. Then we get a quick shot here of Paul in a still suit and Duke Leto in a still suit walking out. And we touched on them a little bit, but what exactly are still suits? What do they do?
Again, going back to the fact that this is a desert planet, water is scarce, extremely scarce, like more than you would even think on a normal Earth desert.
Yeah.
So in order to compensate for that and help the people who are here survive, they wear these still suits, which are very technically advanced suits that maintain all moisture, like whether you're sweating or literally anything, like any droplets that may come out in your breath.
If you're urinating, if you're defecating.
Right. Anything, there's no waste here. So that maintains it. And it like, I guess through like evaporation, condensation, all the water cycle all happens within this suit so that you're maintaining that in a pouch in some sort of container so that you can then drink that liquid instead of walking through the desert, expending it all, and then dying of thirst.
Yeah. And this is something that these suits are invented and worn by the Fremen. And then they offer the Atreides family is obviously wearing them here as they go out onto a mission, probably somewhere in the desert, so that if anything happens, that they'll at least have the still suit on. And these still suits are supposed to allow you could have no direct access to a water source outside of your still suit, and you could survive in the desert for 2, 3, 4 weeks or something to that effect. Then we get these quick close-up of the Sardaukar. It seems, they have these helmets on, and they're wearing like almost like a cap inside. Looks almost like an astronaut suit, which Denis Villeneuve has actually compared these armored suits and helmets to like something an astronaut would wear, because it's also meant to kind of protect them from the environment and being on Arrakis. Duncan, of course, Jason Momoa getting his time to shine. He's just a badass. Whether it was as Khal Drogo in Game of Thrones or as Aquaman, he's always been handy with a weapon. He's always been down to do his own stunts, his own fight choreography. And here he's tearing stuff up. And this is talking now about the shield effect that I was talking about earlier and Zach was hinting at, where when they were sparring earlier, Gurney and Paul, it was basically the shield was blue whenever they were striking, very fast and back and forth and hitting each other hard. So that okay, there's a shield active, it's working, they're protected. Here though, as soon as Duncan comes kind of sliding in, he slices this Sardaukar soldier right here on the right, and it shines bright orange, and the guy just falls down like right away. My theory is that the orange effect will show up and be used whenever a lethal attack is kind of used and breaks through the shield and either injures or kills someone, so that we as an audience can tell the difference. We understand what's happening on screen, but also it's not a question of maybe having too much blood or maybe getting an R rating or something. It's very kind of quickly this effect pops up, and then they're either down or hurt or something. Then
it's very similar to like in the original Star Wars trilogy, how it was like red, like green is the lasers from the Empire and red is the lasers from the Rebels, like to sort of kind of like use it as a color distinguisher so that like what's going on.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a really good point. Color coding and using color in context always helps. I mean, it's it's a very good thing to go to as a filmmaker. And then here we see, I mean, it's inside, it's dark, it's kind of hard to tell. I mean, there's, again, maybe 100, over 100, well over these soldiers. It looks like they're wearing black armor with helmets. This black armor looks similar to what Raban was wearing earlier and similar to what we see Harkonnen soldiers wearing later in the trailer. So I think that's who these are. And then another reason why it's probably safe to say it's them is because in the next shot, we see them charging up these steps and running into a group of Atreides soldiers. They're wearing the same green uniforms they're wearing earlier. Some of them are wearing the armored uniforms we saw the Duke wearing. And then I mentioned earlier on the stone, like maybe the depicted the old Duke with, who was killed in the hunting incident. They are holding these long spear-like poles as weapons to kind of prevent them from being charged. That may actually be in fact the same weapon. That may be something that the Atreides and people in Caladan use all the time. The reason that in the universe, why is it, in most sci-fi movies or in Star Wars, for example, these futuristic films, they have weapons, they have like guns, they have blasters. Why are they not using those in this? Why are they using swords and daggers and knives to kill people instead of like some futuristic technology? Because
it's specifically because of the shield suits, right? Because if you shoot it, it basically explodes, right? So, and especially in the world of Dune, not the world of Dune, but on the planet Arrakis, those explosions, other than just like killing the people around you, it's super sensitive. The world is super sensitive because of the sandworms, which you see at the end of the trailer. Like if you're out in the desert and that explosion happens, it's like within minutes, like you're all screwed because a sandworm is going to come and take you down. So, I mean, again, obviously the direct impact is that you would blow yourself up and people around you. But if the ones who do survive, they would then be attacked by sandworms. Probably.
Right. And there's actually a bit of a technical difference that you're probably going to be shocked when you hear this. But the shields, the effect, the shield actually being activated, these people here, they're all in Arrakeen, which is this big city on Arrakis, which is protected by a big shield wall, which is kind of a natural element out in the desert. It's like a big rocky area. And that basically provides natural protection from sandworms getting in and killing everyone, right? So they can use shields in this city, in these buildings, safely without worrying about a sandworm popping up. Because if you're out in the desert, as soon as you even turn a shield on, the effect draws worms to you. So when you're out in the desert, you can't even have a shield, because if you were to use it, you'd basically be committing suicide, you'd have no chance. And if you, in the effect that happens where they have laser guns, which shoot basically like lasers, like blasters from Star Wars, if you were to shoot someone who was using a shield, it would be not just a deadly result or some smaller explosion. The actual reaction from a laser gun hitting a shield is like a nuclear bomb going off. So like if someone were to use a gun and shoot someone with a shield in this situation, I mean, the entire city would be just wiped off the face of the planet. Everyone would be dead. So the guns are basically never used, and that's why they have reverted to using like weapons of old from ancient times when you're using just swords or knives and daggers. And that also plays into the kind of combat where the shield protects people from direct hits or very fast slashes and stabs. The only way to actually get in through a shield and to kill someone is to slowly slide it in. And because of that, the combat is very complex. It's like a chess game, as Denis Villeneuve has kind of described it. He worked with the fight choreographers and the stunt coordinators to do something that's like a ballet. It's kind of like you have to think 5 steps ahead and distract your opponent and then find an opening to quickly and slide it in before they can notice or even realize what they've done and made a mistake. And then from here, we kind of get into the big crescendo where the music really pumps in. We get this quick shot of Paul where it's edited to seem like it's edited to seem like he's seeing Chani in real life for the first time. And again, it's not doesn't look anything like the beginning of the trailer, does it?
No, I mean, there's the quick glimpse of her again in that bathed in like the golden light.
Yeah.
But then it cuts to what we can assume is real life and not a vision of Paul lowering his weapon as he sees Chani come down the rocks, and he says, "I know you," which is what I mentioned earlier about like that reference to, okay, I've seen you in these prescience and these visions. Mm-hmm. So now they're finally meeting in real life. And
then we get, as the music really pumps up, we get this awesome shot of all these crafts just zooming in through the darkness, through the nighttime. This gave me very strong Blade Runner 2049 vibes.
I haven't even seen that movie, and it gave me very strong Blade Runner 2049 vibes.
But there's a sequence, and people who have seen that movie will know what I'm talking about. There's a sequence in that movie where you have 3 crafts flying through the sky at night. There's orange. There's explosions happening beneath them. I mean, it's lit exactly like this. It looks perfect. As someone who's a big fan of that movie, then maybe the most epic shot in the trailer. A lot of people have been talking about this one, like hyping it up. There's a massive airfield. This may be the same tarmac we saw earlier. And we get 100, 200, hundreds of troops running across. This ornithopter lifts off through the air. Another one lifts off. You can see the lights coming on to other vehicles. A massive, perhaps the same crafts that we saw earlier that were landing and letting all the troops off, is kind of in the air in the background, and then it ruptures and explodes in this massive fireball. The level of detail, the location, the effects in the back with the explosion, the ornithopter, and all the people running. It looks like all hell's breaking loose. This is all hands on deck situation. We see them falling in battle. Gurney runs up and is kind of looking up into the sky. And then we get our second tiny glimpse at the Baron. Zach, what do you think of first off, what do you think? What the heck is going on?
He's just taking a little bubble bath, it looks like. No, I don't, if this was in the book, I don't remember it, but it seems almost like it was.
I don't think it was.
Okay. I was about to say, but I don't know. It's some sort of like, I don't know if it's like a spa or bathing or some health, like, I don't know. It's like it looks like he's getting like a nice mud facial, but he turned it into like a full body. He's at the warm springs.
It does look like mud. Or
having
like
himself a nice weekend getaway, but I don't know.
Weird. And it's
maybe something to do with like maintaining his health because of his like obesity,
I think you could be
his size.
Yeah.
So this is some precaution he has to take. I don't know.
Yeah, I think you definitely could be onto something. I think there must be some sort of, because it's not like, it doesn't look like water. I mean, it doesn't even really look natural, because it has like an almost oily, like black, like literal oil look to it, as it, like it's on his skin. But then of course the makeup. I mean, oh my God. You know, he looks real. I mean, this looks like the Baron from the book, as you would imagine him. It would look like you've seen in maybe some fan art or something, but you get a slight glimpse at his body. His neck is just bulging, his jaw, his shoulders. I can't wait to see his full body look. But this is a cool, very short glimpse. We see Jessica kind of looking emotional. We get this really fun salute between Duncan and Paul that people have been kind of talking about online, which I think a lot of people, the fans of the book, have been talking about, because it's not anything from the books that I recall. I don't know if Zach, if you remember anything like this.
I mean, nothing specific. I would say it seems sort of like one of them is going off on some sort of mission or to go somewhere, and it's like just one of their little things. Again, maybe just like a connection, like I mentioned earlier about them being closer in age, something special that they do versus Paul with his other mentors.
Yeah, I definitely think that that's what it could be. It could just be like a cool thing. Maybe even Jason Momoa and Timothée Chalamet came up with this thing on their own, and then they were like, hey, let's incorporate that into the film. But I actually think, just throw this in there, food for thought. These two shots do not happen in the same location by the look of it. It looks like Paul, unless there's something weird going on with the maybe they're digitally compositing these environments. Jason looks like he's on like a real set here. And
yeah, it looks like he's
looks
inside of something versus
and then Paul looks like he's out in the desert, like on location. So I don't know, maybe Duncan,
maybe this is just a general Atreides gesture or something like that.
Yeah, or maybe Duncan does it earlier, and then Paul like does it like later on as kind of a callback to seeing him. Then we get this huge, I mean, holy shit! Did you expect to see the sandworm like this in the trailer? Like, what was kind of?
I had like an audible like reaction the first time I watched it to this, like oh my God, like I was like caught off guard, because of course we all went into it expecting like what ends up happening of like the giant reveal at the end of the trailer.
Yeah,
but I wasn't expecting like a little tease. Like, this isn't even a tease. This is like a full on like showing of its full force.
Right, I mean, this thing is huge. It's hard to tell how high up in the air they are, because they're in the back of an ornithopter. But there's this vehicle in its mouth. I mean, look at these teeth are like tree trunks. I mean, they're so long. And lots of people have been comparing it to like baleen that you would see in a whale's mouth. And I said that in my article. It's like what they use to sift through the seawater and eat krill and different things like that, and plankton. But yeah, no, it looks epic. I mean, this thing is huge. I mean, this is bigger than the one we see later in the trailer by a long shot. So you can kind of get an idea for the size of these things and how they vary. And I love how it's from their point of view. You're kind of like looking over their shoulder down into it. Quick shot of Dr. Yui again. We see some more Harkonnen soldiers. They seem to be escorting him somewhere, maybe taking him prisoner. We get our first look at Liet Kynes. I believe this is the first look we get of her in the trailer. Sharon Duncan Brewster is playing her. In the book, Zach, what is Liet Kynes' kind of like function in the story?
Okay, again, first of all, biggest thing here with this character is the gender swap. That this was a male character in the book. It is now being played by a black woman. So again, just another opportunity. Speaking about diversity earlier in the episode, this is a great example of working that into a story. But this character is like an ecologist on the planet Arrakis. So sort of like studying the ecology. That is what an ecologist does. Studying what the environment is like, how to manage water, how to survive in this area. I'm going to pass it back to you just for a little bit more in-depth, I guess, about what they do, because they work with the Freemen, and then they also work with the other tribes, the other people within Arrakis.
Right. Yeah. So Liet Kynes as the planetologist, she's basically in the novel, this character is half, I believe, half Fremen and half not native to Arrakis. I think the father was kind of sent there by the emperor. He was given this job there, and I may be wrong, but I'm pretty sure this is how I remember it. And then, of course, he, as the kind of ambassador to the Fremen, I think he ended up meeting, someone and being having Chani. This is in the novel. Kynes is the father to Chani, which is Zendaya's character. In this, she's going to be the mother to Chani. And a lot of people have been speculating that perhaps, while Stilgar was Chani's uncle in the novel, a lot of people are thinking that maybe Liet Kynes, this character, and Javier Bardem's character, Stilgar, the leader of the Fremen, are going to be a couple, or at least the parents of Chani. So that's going to be interesting to see how much they change it. But yeah, her character is an ambassador for everyone, basically. She's responsible to the emperor, reports to the emperor, but she is there to help with relations with the Fremen, help with relations between the Atreides and the Harkonnens. She has a very good, natural intuition with the planet, but also because she's been learning about it since she was a child. Her father was the planetologist before her. So yeah, a key character. But not one that's major whereas like with screen time, for example, like Paul and Lady Jessica will be. Then we get this really cool shot of these ornithopters in flight. Their wings are flapping. They look amazing. They're coming in over these rocks towards what looks like Arakeen back there. We get a quick shot here, close-up shot of the waist of Raban as he and a bunch of Harkonnen soldiers like march out. I'm not sure if this is supposed to be on Arrakis or if this is supposed to be on Gedi Prime, the Harkonnen homeworld. But I just noticed this last night, Zach. What is this thing hanging off his waist? You can kind of see there's like a stick to it here on the top, and then there's like this loop. What do you think that is?
Let me see. I haven't even thought about this.
Because to me,
it looks almost like a whip.
Right. And do you recall what the significance of that is in the book?
I'm not gonna lie, I don't.
Okay, well, I'm impressed that you noticed that it or thought that it looks like a whip, because I think it is a whip. And it's important because in the story, Gurney Halleck, played by Josh Brolin, one of Paul's mentors, he was a slave on the Harkonnen planet. He was a prisoner of the Harkonnens for a long time. That's kind of how he is come to be so strong and rough, as he was able to survive that. But he has like a huge, massive feud with the Harkonnens, and specifically Raban, because not only was his sister basically raped and murdered by the Harkonnens, but he was tortured and whipped, and that's how he gets this big scar on his face. And you can see that in some of the images. There's the makeup on Josh Brolin, his left cheek. But I think that's why, it's very, I had not thought of it. I was like, there's this quick shot of his waist. Like, why put that in the trailer? But I just noticed that there's this kind of whip on his hip here. And I think it is significant. There's no reason to show something if it doesn't matter, isn't important. And I think that this may be hinting at the fact, or calling back to, if it's mentioned in the movie, this relation, this connection with Gurney, with the Atreides, and how Raban is, integral to that. And it's very, very kind of sinister that he is, if he's going to maybe go to Arrakis or maybe try to hunt down the Atreides or Gurney, that he's carrying that whip on his the person like that. So that's just a really cool little neat thing that they threw in there. Maybe I'm wrong, but I do think that's what that is. Then we get this haunting shot of the Duke Leto. He's wearing this white shirt, and then there's this red handprint, bloody handprint that appears on his shoulder after the hand comes off of it. Zach, you probably know what that is. I'm not going to spoil it necessarily, but do you?
I believe I do.
Yeah. Okay. So he's looking down. He looks scared or like kind of like confused. Paul, Stilgar, cool quick shot of them. Then we see this really neat shot of Paul in action, kind of in combat here. And Zach, what is going on? Why is Paul looking so fierce? His nose is bleeding. What's happening?
I believe this would be when he's basically being tested by the Fremen.
Yeah.
About like whether they think that he is Muad'Dib, whether he is the prophecy, like the one who's prophesized. And basically his power is being challenged. And so in order to do that, if someone calls you out, you have to perform, like you have to fight them basically in combat. So
yeah,
this is the challenge that I believe is what's going down here.
I think you're probably right. It's kind of hard to say because there are two instances in the book where Paul and this character, this man who has the blade at his neck, this character's name is Jameis. He's one of the Fremen. He's kind of a hothead, and that's basically how he finds himself in this situation with Paul. But in the book, there's a moment where they come together physically where Paul basically disarms Jameis and has him compromised physically, and he's not a threat anymore. And then because of that, because Jameis feels like he's been exposed, kind of like he's been kind of emasculated almost, he has to challenge him and say, hey, you can't just come in and do that to me. Like I have to challenge you now, and like I have to like protect my honor. So I'm not sure if this is the initial confrontation, and that's why, because in the confrontation, in the when he challenges him, it's to the death. It's a mortal combat, and so here it's like, why is he has the blade right there? Why doesn't he just kill him? What's going on? So I'm not sure. Maybe Paul is having second thoughts. Maybe he doesn't want to kill him necessarily. So this is going to be a huge pivotal scene, regardless of what it is. And then you can kind of see it's very, very shallow depth of field here, but you can see very appropriately between them in the background, Lady Jessica. She has the white, fair skinned face back here. And that's Rebecca Ferguson's character. And then, I love, what do you think of the tagline, by the way? Beyond fear, destiny awaits.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously that's a play on like the fear is the mind killer, talking about like I cannot fear, which is what Paul says right here in a couple seconds. So I mean, that's always been the tagline associated with Dune. So I think it's a nice way to like pay tribute to that, but also not just like be a little more creative. I mean, it's
totally
putting its own, again, talking about whether it's the design, the characters, anything like that, putting the Denis Villeneuve twist on it. That this is again just another instance of doing that. And obviously, destiny, prophecy, that's a huge element at play in this epic story as well. So I like it. I like that they mixed it up a little bit.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's a really good point. You have to. It's paying homage, and it is pulling directly from the source material while still doing its own thing. Then we get this really short, neat shot. It looks like basically from the vantage point of this ship up in the sky, looking down. There's a massive explosion. Looks like Arrakis. Then Duncan, he's pointing. He looks like he's in a hurry to go somewhere, maybe to kill some people. And then Chani, this very dreamy-looking lighting. This very bright orange, and her eyes, the eyes of the Abad. What is the deal, without getting into it too much, with the whole eye situation in Dune, Zach?
Basically, we haven't really talked about it too much. You mentioned it with the sandworms, but the whole purpose of this planet Arrakis is like people come here to mine spice to get it out of the sand. And so once you've been on this planet for an extended period of time, you've breathed in the spice, you've consumed it, it's become a part of you, and it begins to turn your eyes this bright blue. I believe it's dark blue in the book, but it's just like this blue color that it's not just like what we would think of blue eyes, but it's like the entire eye is blue.
Yeah. You're definitely right. It is supposed to be like almost like a black eye in the novel. Because it's the whole eye. It's not just a typical
iris.
Yeah. But you can only, I feel like it's hard to do that on screen because then, you have to have in acting so much of the emotion and the intent is in the eyes. And if you can't see them, then it's like, how are you going to get some of these more subtle points across? But the whole eye is still blue. They're not keeping the whites at all, but it is a lighter color, and you can still make out the structure of the eye, which I think is probably the smart way to go. But there's a great contrast in that shot of Chani right there. Her eye really pops out. And then there's this shot, Paul's thrusting, slamming the thruster down on the ornithopter. They're inside here. Really cool. You blink and you miss it again, but the wings seem to be tucked back. You can see kind of this propulsion behind them. It has like these bug eyes on the front almost, which is pretty cool. It's a different variation from the ornithopters we've already seen. So it looks like we'll be getting a few different designs, which, hey, the more the merrier. And it looks like, what's the deal with the storm, Zach? What's the Arrakis climate like in the weather with the
I mean, as in real world deserts, there are sandstorms, but they can get really bad on Arrakis. So it's like bad as in to the point where you can't fly. It'll crash your aircraft.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I mean, well, there's one major scene where they do go into the storm. And so we can only assume that is what is going on here.
Yeah. I think that's safe to say.
They have to risk it to escape. So
yeah. And, and by serious, I mean, these sandstorms, there's like 800 miles an hour. If you were to be standing out in one, your whole body would be disintegrated instantly. And as you said, vehicles are of course very prone to destruction and failure. So it's very dangerous to be out there doing that, but hey, no other choice. So, and then of course this very cool shot, we hadn't seen any spice to this point. It hadn't even really been mentioned or even hinted at. But then he grabs this handful of sand out in the desert, and you can see it's like a reddish orange that they're using to kind of contrast with the real sand. I'm very curious to know how they did that in the actually on location, and then kind of I guess you have to go in and put the sand in there, or maybe they color it in post production. But
it looks great though.
It looks great. It looks exactly like the book. I mean, it's like how you would imagine it. It looks almost like cinnamon-esque.
Right. That's what I was going to say. Just sprinkle some cinnamon in his hand.
Yeah, very, very costly effect. And then you get this very sincere kind of, Jason Momoa playing this emotional moment here with Paul's character and bowing down to him and honoring him in a way. The shot here, you see these from in the background of Paul. His hair is dangling in his face. It's a brooding... I mean, it looks,
little bloody nose too. So it looks like it might come after that showdown with Jameis.
Yeah. So there's definitely going to be some physicality that Chalamet is going to show off that he's never shown off before, which is exciting to see actors kind of hop into different things. And then finally, the money shot, the kind of wow moment. A lot of people were kind of worried, like, is it going to be showing too much to show the sandworm? Is it going to be spoiling things? I think they kind of had no choice but to show it, because Dune is so associated with sandworms, and it's such a bit of spectacle, and you need to draw people in with effects and big moments like that. How'd you feel about it, Zach?
I think they played it the right way.
I mean, they don't show a lot. I mean, they don't show other than the scene. Like, you got that quick glimpse of it taking down that craft, but it's not like it was slinging around, like coming up out. You see it come up out of the sand at the end of the trailer here, but it's not like you saw it like thrashing or any of like the riding, anything that we'll talk about. That would probably come in part 2. Yeah. But any of they didn't do it too much. We knew that was the big spectacle, that, like you said, that was the massive effects, the most impressive thing. So people expected it at the end. They gave it, they did what we expected, what we wanted. And I think it was like the perfect amount of, okay, we know what it looks like now, but we don't know what it's capable of. So right.
That's still waiting to be seen. We obviously, as we see people running around, running across the dunes to try and escape, we know that what it can potentially do, but we haven't seen it. So
I think that's a good way of putting it. It's showing potential. It's showing, holy hell, these things are here. They look amazing. They're massive. They're scary. the design here, Villeneuve has kind of used the word, and you see when it's rising up, you can see the skin, you can see the texture.
It's almost like octopus or like squid, like the like suckers.
Yeah, it's kind of these little round bits on it, like the texture of the flesh, and maybe those little bits are like maybe armored perhaps or something like that, but it rises up, and the scale, I mean, it's very, again, Godzilla-esque. It looks like you've seen maybe in the 2014 Godzilla movie or the King of the Monsters movie, where it rises up and then there's like a human that's just dwarfed by it, and then this final money shot here where it's just the sound, the effect. It's hard to say that's gonna be exactly what's in the movie, but it's almost like a breathing like kind of sound, and you can see its body kind of like inhale almost. I thought that was really neat, and it looks real. Like it looks like something like a prehistoric type creature,
right?
And it's I'm excited to see how much of that how much of the sandworms we're going to see in this first part. The design element and getting like maybe more footage and better better quality video and whatnot. I'm very excited about that, and then we get the title card here, and it looks beautiful.
The all-time flex of the cast.
I mean, you couldn't not do it, right?
Right. I mean, when you've got that, you've got to show it off. But I mean, I think this, again, obviously that was super in-depth of every little detail here that the Dune expert himself picked up on. But I mean, I think just like when you look at it as a whole, it's a great trailer. It gets people excited. I've had multiple people like reach out to me just knowing that we've been doing coverage, like non-Dune fans, not like hardcore movie people, but like, hey, what's the deal with this? Like, why are people talking about it so much? Like, what should I expect from it? Should I get excited about it? And like, I've kind of given them it's like, think Star Wars, think Lord of the Rings, think all of this like epic scale, think about that level of fandom, people who are that passionate about it, and just kind of explained a little bit about what's behind it. And so obviously this trailer is getting people talking, whether it's the people like us who are talking as in breaking down every little detail, or the people who are just a casual viewer and now put this on their watch list. Yeah. And I think, again, from what we said at the very beginning, for fans of the novel, fans of the previous maybe adaptations, even though they weren't as faithful or weren't as well executed, or if you just know nothing about it, or you're kind of just a movie fan and you know some of the people in the movie, or you're a fan of the Denis Villeneuve or some of the crew, it has a little bit of draw for everyone, I feel like, and I think they did a good job of showing that off here, and that's why so many people were talking about it, not just film fans or Dune fans, but it definitely kind of made an impact, and it's still trending on YouTube. It's at almost 18 million views now. It's closing in on the Batman trailer, dude. So yeah, let me ask, you said that we did our trailers, our top 5 trailers a couple episodes ago. Batman made the list. Yeah. Does Dune make the list? If so, where? Oh, it definitely makes the list. I think did it already rocket up to number 1 all time, or is it just like it's great but not the best? It's so hard because I mean, my number 1 wasn't the best trailer I've ever seen. Even it was just kind of my experience with that one, right? So maybe in that regard it is the number 1, because I mean, I was waiting so long for it and I'm so pleased with it, and we did the reaction video, and it's almost like this trailer has been a movie event, like in itself, like it's like a movie premiering basically. Right. They did the teaser for the trailer. People have done like us done tons of coverage about the trailer. Yeah. Just wait until the movie happens and see what kind of coverage there is. It is like, in that respect, I feel like it is for me just a unmatched event when it comes to trailers. I mean, from looking at it objectively, it would definitely be up there for me. Definitely a top 5. It's right there. The Batman was an amazing little teaser that they miraculously threw together with 25% of the film done. This has obviously been done for a while now, and they had everything that they could throw in here. So, Warner Brothers is killing it. These are the 2 most talked about movies of the last couple weeks as far as trailers and promotion goes, and then of course you have Tenet hitting theaters and people all talking about that too. So and Wonder Woman is on the docket as well.
yeah, I am very, very excited, of course, and pleased with how this all turned out. I think you've basically expressed the same feelings. So just glad to be able to talk about it with everyone and kind of break it down for those who either know everything about Dune or are just wanting to learn more and kind of get their feet wet.
Yeah, there you have it, the Dune trailer deep dive. And that's it for the episode today. We had our news, had our Dune trailer. Next week, we will be back with some movies. But today, thank you all for listening. Be sure to follow Inside the Film Room on social media, on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, wherever you are, we are too at Inside Film Room. And be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at Inside Film Room, because we just posted a great trailer reaction video. You get to see, you heard it in the voice, but see it in the face. See Johnny's true excitement here. And we're going to be posting all our podcasts get posted on YouTube as well. We've got some other videos coming in the pipeline. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review 5 stars wherever you get your podcasts. Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, Google, Amazon. We're on all of them. And like I said, join us next week. We'll be back to reviewing movies, not just trailers. We'll hopefully be talking Netflix's The Devil All the Time, as well as Antebellum, which comes out on paid video on demand next week. But until then, we'll see you next time.